Johannesburg is a city that is ever-changing and ever-growing. In order to accommodate this growth, the city's aging infrastructure is undergoing major rehabilitation.
The city of Johannesburg has got in total about 13,500 roads, including surfaced or tarred roads and gravel roads. The condition of these roads have been deteriorating over the years because of lack of investment in the road infrastructure. However, I need to indicate that the city of Johannesburg has committed itself to reinvest into the infrastructure through its 100 billion infrastructure investment over the 10-year period. And road infrastructure stands to benefit most out of that program. As part of ensuring that the JRA is ready to implement the road infrastructure developments that are required by the city, we initiated quite a number of processes to make sure that we are ready to implement. So one of it is that we conducted a visual condition assessment on our roads, and we now know the extent of the road network. We now know the condition of each of the roads in the city, and therefore we know what is needed to make sure that the road infrastructure is in the condition that befits a world-class African city. Subsequent to that, we also conducted an assessment on the bridge structures across the city, which in total is about 889. And that indicated to us that we need in the region of about 5 billion rands to invest in the bridge infrastructure to really address the defects that have been identified through that assessment process. So the work that we're currently doing on the bridges, including the M1 bridges, the double-decker, the Oxford and Federation Bridge, is really the outcome of that exercise. And we have prioritized bridges on the M1 precisely because of the economic role that the road plays in the city of Johannesburg. But there are other bridges that were identified that required upgrades. For instance, in Soweto, currently we are busy constructing an Aledi Bridge, which is linking two communities which were previously separated by the apartheid regime, which is over a railway line and exposing most of our communities there to a risk of being run down by trains.
During the apartheid era, South Africa's cities were demarcated for whites only, excluding people of color from these economic hubs. Infrastructure investment is key to undoing the injustices and creating an integrated society. In Johannesburg, the Corridors of Freedom project aims to use the city's public transport routes as the backbone of development to bring previously excluded citizens closer to places of economic opportunity. This is Johannesburg's M1 highway, connecting the northern and southern areas with the city centre. Between 8,000 and 10,000 cars use a highway every hour.
Currently, we are busy with the rehabilitation of the bridges. So as I've indicated, the assessment identified defects on some of these bridges. And a typical example is that the double-decker bridge, every time we have a storm, it floods. Now, there's a challenge with the stormwater drainage on the double-decker bridge. Secondly, there's an issue of the joints that needs to be, expansion joints that needs to be replaced. They are worn out. Thirdly, there's issues around the bearings and some of the concrete structures that require attention in terms of repairs. Lastly, because of the scourge of vandalism and theft on our infrastructure, a lot of the railings steel railings along the bridge have been stolen, and we need to replace them. Obviously, we are going to use a product that is made of concrete that has got less street value, and therefore it should reduce the risk of being vandalized and stolen. So the work that we're doing on the M1 is really focusing on those bridges. Federation and Oxford bridges is also pretty much the same defects that we need to deal with. So the rehabilitation program really focuses on making sure that the bridge structures that we have are kept in a good condition that they should be, and we are able to at least extend the lifespan of those bridges by another 50 years or so. There is another process that we are currently busy with, which is going to look at the capacity assessment of the freeways. you would know that the M1 is one of the highly congested freeway within the city of Johannesburg. And if you look at the freeways that are under the auspices of the National Road Agency, SANRAL, a lot of them traverses the city of Johannesburg, and they have been upgraded to a better standard. And we are currently looking at our M1, the M2 and Soweto Highway to be brought to the same standard, obviously without the tolling on those freeways. So as soon as we are ready with the outcome of that exercise, we'll be able to share it with the public in terms of what is it that we're going to do to deal with congestion, in particular on the M1 and M2. At this point in time, bulk of the work that is being done is outsourced by the JRA, so we've got consulting engineers that are doing the designs and construction supervision on our behalf, and also the construction work itself is being carried out by private sector companies. We obviously, as a public entity, follow a procurement process to be able to procure the services of these companies. So we're really tapping into private sector expertise to be able to assist us in rendering these services.
Sandton is widely known as Africa's richest square mile. It has become South Africa's new financial district and Johannesburg's premier business centre. The city of Johannesburg is investing about 180 million rand towards improving the area's transport infrastructure.
The program that we're rolling out in Sandton is really to make sure that we maintain those roads in good and very good condition. There's also been upgrades on our traffic signals, replacement of the lights with the LED lights. We have also been installing what we call remote monitoring system so that we are able to remotely monitor the functioning and operations of our traffic signals and be able to identify traffic signals that are out of operation. That enables us to dispatch teams to respond to those faults. And over and above that, there's been other initiatives by our sister departments that is looking at the BRT bus rapid transport system, as well as provision for other modes of transport like cycling and pedestrians and so on.
Sandton City Improvement District Manager Elaine Jack is facilitating conversations and partnerships between private sector and government to improve the area's public space and amenities.
We all know Sandton is the very commercial, financial hub of Johannesburg, and I think the city also sees that as a priority, that we do need to address some of the challenges that we have in Sandton, such as infrastructure. Infrastructure, what I call is transportation initiatives, because we in our recent transport study, the actual study tells us that we are expecting almost close to 70 to 80,000 cars daily in and out of Sandton, and the continual growth of cars to be in the area is not a sustainable solution. So this is all comes up with now finding solutions to try and alleviate people coming out of private cars and into possibly public transport, providing those infrastructure to be in place in Sandton to allow for people to opt. If they live close enough, they can walk or cycle, or yes, taking public transport like BRT, which is one of the future projects into Sandton. But we acknowledge that the area of Sandton is the prestigious area in Johannesburg, and there is need to have these interventions to try and keep the node sustained for the next 10-20 years.
The Eco-Mobility Festival held in Sandton for the month of October last year demonstrated the need for public transport within the CBD, as well as creating safe and efficient access for thousands of commuters from the nearby township of Alexandra.
Part of the study itself came about where we had to establish where would these public transport routes be be here in Sandton, because remember, we did not build Sandton based on a public transport spine. We are now retrofitting, so we have to now change what we currently have, which was designed purely for motorists, and now to accommodate and make the road be able to be shareable. And shared amongst different modes of transport, such as cycling and public transport. So during the Eco-Mobility Festival, we also tried to test the study that we did. And so some of the legacies of the Eco-Mobility was the public transport loop, which is Rivonia, Fredman and Fifth. Then there's also the cycle routes that is coming from Alexandra into Sandton. So that includes Catherine, Linden, Maud Street, and then on towards Rosebank or Rosebank into Sandton. So these are type of interventions that has to happen, as well as the widening of pedestrian walkways. As you all know, our walkways are always given very last considerations for pedestrians. So now we are really trying to retrofit and be able to find a fair share of road space for both pedestrians, cyclists, motorists, and people who want to use public transport. Should be even bigger than New York, we hope. So, but you know, we've got our own challenges that we have to upkeep and maintain. But I'm very glad that there is this partnership between the private property owners as well as the city of Johannesburg, and the intention is there to work together in ensuring, you know, the future of Sandton remains, you know, sustainable and the preferred node.